AAA gun safety with your tip of the week. Actually, two tips: the field interview stance and the reactionary gap. What the field interview stance is, it's a stance that's taught to law enforcement on how to engage a subject, but it's equally applicable to civilians, especially those who carry firearms. However, it's not necessary to carry a firearm to make this a useful technique. Basically, what it looks like is like this. Your body's bladed at a 45-degree angle, hands are above the waist, you're facing the individual that you're speaking to, and you're in a very non-offensive, non-threatening posture. Now, as opposed to what we can call the attitude stance, this point you're square to the individual, and now you're exposing what I like to call your killer V's. You got your crotch, your armpits, your throat, your filthrip area, and also your sternum. You also have another position which is bowing up. So sometimes individuals get bowed up. And again, you're very vulnerable. Hands are below the waist. This presents a much smaller target and gives you the opportunity not only to remove access to some of these more vulnerable areas, your hands are in a better position. Again, non-threatening, but prepared to be able to defend if needed. So how do you get into the position? Well, I'm right side dominant, so I'll refer to my right side as the dominant side. If you're left-handed, it would be the opposite. So basically, stand with your feet about hip width apart, then move your dominant leg or foot rearward, where you create an imaginary line between the heel of your non-dominant foot and the toe of your dominant foot. Then simply shift and point them out at 45 degrees to whatever the individual or the subject that you're engaging. Bend your knees, and again, non-threatening. Hands above the waist, typically palms out, palms in front of you. Now, can you make this into a fighting stance? Absolutely, but that's not what you're trying to achieve at this point. Now you're ready to engage, speak, etc. Now, you can also cross your arms, but you do not want to fold them into each other because now it becomes a little bit hard to dislodge them. The recommendation is overlap them, and now you still have the same ability to defend, or if you want, you can have this one in front of you, but again, same concept. So that's basically the field interview stance. Now the second part is the reactionary gap. Well, those of you have heard, or some of you have probably heard, for every action there's a reaction. But within a reactionary gap, sometimes the person causing the action has the speed advantage, and it takes you longer to react, so you could become more of a target. So how do you defeat that? Typically, double arms distance. That's what we call a reactionary gap. If the person is a lot taller than you, you may need to go a little bit farther, but this is about the right distance. So why is that important? Well, typically if that individual is going to come into contact with me, if we have double arms distance, he's going to have to take 2 steps in order to connect with me. So he takes 1 step, that gives me the opportunity to get out of the way, keep moving back, run, or take whatever action I deem necessary. If you're within that 1 arm's distance, now the individual can launch his attack. Now you're in a grappling situation. If you are carrying a firearm, now you've upped the ante. So again, double arms distance, and the more you practice it, the more you come into contact, the easier it gets. All right, so quick recap: field interview stance, sometimes called or often called the FI stance, and the reactionary gap. Be safe.